I'd like to call the caucus to order. I will ask for nominations for caucus chairman and caucus clerk. For those nominations, I will now recognize the chair of the Board of Selectmen, Robin Hunter. Good evening. I'd like to nominate James Rapetti and Darlene Heike for chairman and clerk. Do I have a second? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I will call for a voice vote for James Rapetti for caucus chairman and Darlene Heike for caucus clerk. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Felicia. This caucus is held under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Sections 117 to 121. We have a town election scheduled for May 15, 2023, and our purpose tonight is to nominate a maximum of 2 candidates for each open office in that election. I would like the following process to apply, and after I have explained it, I will ask you to approve it. 1. Ballots must be cast and counted for those offices for which more than 2 candidates are nominated. The 2 persons receiving the highest number of votes shall be the caucus nominee. All nominees must receive the votes of at least 8% of those attending the caucus. Several years ago, we decided to allow the caucus clerk to cast a single ballot on behalf of the caucus in those instances where there are not more than 2 nominees, and to count ballots only for those offices for which more than 2 people are nominated. The person nominating the candidate may spend 2 minutes speaking for his or her candidate. There are no seconding speeches, but I would like to hear a clear and concise second from the floor. The candidates will be introduced at the time of nomination and may speak briefly for no more than 2 minutes if they wish. At the close of nominations, candidates will be introduced again and their names will be displayed on the easel on my left in front of you. If necessary, voting will occur after the completion of nominees for all offices to be filled. All nominees must accept the caucus nomination by signing the caucus certificate. Please do not leave before signing that certificate. If a nominee is not present tonight, he or she must sign the caucus certificate at the town clerk's office by Tuesday, March 21st at 4 p.m. I reiterate, there will be no vote if we have only 2 nominees for each position. If we have more than 2 nominees, we will have a vote. Are there any questions about this process? May I have a voice vote adopted for this caucus? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Anyone who wishes to run for office may, as an alternative to seeking the caucus nomination, secure nomination papers from the town clerk. Nomination papers will be available on Wednesday, March 8th, and must be submitted to the Board of Registrars by Monday, March 27th by 3 p.m. 35 signatures of registered voters of the town of Dover are required for a nomination. I would now like to briefly recuse myself because I have a conflict of interest with respect to the first nomination. I turn the podium over to Felicia Hoffman.
I will now accept nominations for the office of moderator for a 1-year term. Please.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Kate Howland, and I live on Walton Street, and it is my honor to nominate James Rapetti for the position of town moderator. I believe the easiest job tonight is if you're here, chances are you already know Jim Rapetti. Ever since he assumed Dover 30-something years ago to raise a family, Jim has served our community with pride and devotion. Some of us know him as Scoutmaster, some of us know him from search committees, a few of us know him from his work on Dover's emergency management team. And we all know Jim from his work as town moderator and before that assistant town moderator. We know that Jim runs a good meeting, and not just because his law professor day job gives him away to say. Jim really cares about Dover and cares about town meeting. He works hard at town meeting to ensure that all sides of an issue can be heard, so that together we can make the best decisions for our town. Jim has also done a great deal of thoughtful work on how to honor the traditional aspects of our centuries-old governing system of town meeting, while accommodating the expanded agendas of 21st century Dover. And throughout it all, Jim never loses sight of the fact that at the end of the day, we are all neighbors. So I hope to see you at town meeting on Monday, May 1st, and I hope you will join me in voting for Jim Petty at the polls on Monday, May 5th. Thank you.
Mr. Petty, would you like to say a few words?
So I say thank you very much, Kate, and thank you all for coming out tonight. Most of you in this room do a lot of work for the town, and you are what makes this town a great place to live in. So thank you very much for your service. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations for the position of moderator? Hearing none, I declare the position closed. I'll now turn the podium over to Mr. Petty.
Thank you, Felicia. Only a lawyer could love this, right? Okay, so now we move to the second nomination for tonight, the position of town clerk. There is one position open for town clerk, and the term is for 3 years. Do I hear any nominations for town clerk? Yes, Kathy.
Kathy Well, 29 Main Street. I'm very pleased to nominate Felicia Hoffman for another 3-year term as town clerk.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nomination has been seconded. Thank you, Kathy. Go ahead.
Well, as town clerk for almost 10 years, Felicia interacts with most, if not all, of us Dover citizens in one way or another, whether it's from issuing dog licenses, keeping records of marriages, births, and deaths, and who's living here, to running elections. And I know firsthand how very organized she is, how attentive to detail and accuracy, and very knowledgeable, all indispensable qualifications for an excellent town clerk. She's always helpful, cheerful, welcoming. She loves what she does and is exceptionally good at it. Dover is very fortunate to have Felicia as town clerk, and I hope that you'll all join me in supporting her for another term. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Felicia?
Well, thank you, Kathy. Wonderful words. I do love my job. I love coming to work every day. I love interacting with all of you, and I would like to do it for 3 more years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Felicia. Are there any other nominations for town clerk? Hearing none, I declare nominations closed for this position. Our next position will be for the Board of Selectmen. There is one position open, and it is a 3-year term. Do I hear any nominations for selectmen? Mr. Haviland.
Thank you. Dave Haviland, 88 Walpole Street, and it is my great honor to nominate Robin Hunter to the Board of Selectmen.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nomination has been seconded. Go ahead, Mr. Haviland.
Well, I think we're quite fortunate to have a neighbor such as Robin who's willing to give another 3 years to the Board of Selectmen. It's possible that there's someone in here who doesn't know Robin, so I'm just going to give a quick recap. But Robin moved into Dover in 1998 with her husband Greg and her son Sam, and very soon thereafter started getting to work for this town and contributing in ways that most of us will never realize. Let's start with 6 years on the warrant committee, 3 years on the regional school committee, 1 year on the Capital Budget Committee, and Robin has been a member of the Board of Selectmen since 2013. We're also fortunate that Robin is the CFO of a biotech company in Cambridge, and so we get to benefit from a business acumen as well. And so I want to make sure I didn't forget any of these accolades that I have to go through here. But Robin did share with me that one of the reasons she would like to run is that the town has had a fair number of personnel changes. It doesn't want to leave this issue open and business unfinished. So I say that if Robin's willing to give us another 3 years of her time, we ought to take it and run like the wind. So I hope you'll support me in supporting Robin both tonight and at the general election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Ms. Hunter?
Good evening, everyone. I never thought I'd be standing up here again this year, but as Dave said, there's a lot of unfinished business in this town, and I feel as though it's really important for us to have continuity as we bring in many new staff people. So I would love to serve you again for another 3 years, and I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the Board of Selectmen? Hearing none, I declare nominations for this position closed. The next position that we will consider is the position of Town Assessor. There is one position open, and it is a 3-year term. Are there any nominations for Town Assessor? Mr. Long.
Charlie Long, 121 Walpole Street. I'm pleased to nominate Bonnie Akins for another term on the Board of Assessors. Bonnie is...
Excuse me, Charlie. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Go ahead, Charlie.
Bonnie's been an active participant in town affairs since she arrived over 50 years ago, served on many committees, very dedicated, and she's served for the last 20 years on the Board of Assessors. It's wonderful that she's been willing to take on another term, and I'm happy to support her for this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Is Bonnie here tonight? Okay. Okay, so Ms. Akins is out of town. Are there any other nominations for the position of Town Assessor? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next we will consider the Dover School Committee. There are 2 positions open, and each is for a term of 3 years. Are there any nominations for Dover School Committee? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Gutierrez Dunn. I live on Powder House Road, and I would like to nominate Martha Holt Castle for one of the 2 open positions on the Dover School Committee.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, nomination has been seconded. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha is the proud parent of 2 children in the Dover-Sherburne school system, and she has lived in Dover for the past 6 years. She is a double eagle with an undergraduate and a law degree from Boston College. Martha is a seasoned attorney with 20 years of practice and a breadth and depth of experience spanning nonprofit and government settings to large law firms and in-house counsel positions. She's also served in various public service and volunteer capacities, including as a past secretary, vice president, and president of the Dover PTO, which works on behalf of the Chickering school community. I had the pleasure of serving on the PTO board with Martha and can attest that she brings a compelling blend of expertise, problem solving, pragmatism, and good humor, alongside an admirable dedication to service and to strengthening our school community. I'm grateful to Martha for her willingness to serve on the Dover School Committee and to share her time and talents to support our district's mission of inspiring, challenging, and supporting all students as they discover and pursue their full potential. I hope that you will join me in supporting Martha's candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Castle, would you like to?
Hi everyone, I'm Martha Castle and I live at 15 Pond Street. And as Sarah so kindly introduced me, I'm humbled to be considered for this role. I am the proud mother of 2 children who have spent their entire educational career here in Chickering and then at the Dover Middle School. My son, who is in 6th grade, just got his premiere performance at the musical in SpongeBob SquarePants. Hopefully somebody saw that amazing performance. But also my children have experienced the wonderful other enrichment opportunities that our community provides to our children. And that includes sports and also all of the artistic programs that are available and the like. And it's really one of the reasons why I value this community so much. I want to make sure that we're continuing to provide such wonderful opportunities for our children to grow both academically but also as individuals, and really to make sure that there's a place for all of us here in Dover. And so I hope that you consider that when you vote for me.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for Dover School Committee? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm Colleen Burt. I live at Yorkshire Road. I'd like to nominate tonight Jessie Holt for the Dover School Committee.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Nomination has been seconded. Go ahead.
Thank you. Jessie is one of our newer residents. She moved to Dover in 2020. Even though she's only been here a short time and she has 3 very young children, she is already serving on the School Advisory Council and also serving as a soccer coach. She has children in first and second grades and a 2-year-old. And she is currently doing great work on the School Advisory Council with me, where I have been able to witness her work. She's collaborative, caring, and capable, which positions her really well for work on the Dover School Committee. As someone who knows the committee well, from my experience on it, I know that she will be a great fit, and I really hope she has your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Holt? Is she here too? Oh, good. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Jessie Holt. I live at 37 Pine Street. It seems to be a popular road for Dover School Committee nominees. Yes, as Colleen said, I moved here in 2020 with my family, my dog, my 3 kids at the time, and I've always been embedded in the community. It's what I do professionally. I'm a strategy and operations consultant working with government organizations throughout the country. It's what I do, it's what I love. Before that, I was in community development myself. Raising awareness, thinking strategically about what makes communities healthy and sustainable for all of us to live in. I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about making it better professionally and for our community as a whole. I've always been involved publicly wherever I lived. I lived in Boston before I moved to Dover, and I would be honored to continue my deeper work in Dover as part of this school.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for Dover School Committee? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we have one position for the Dover-Sherburne Regional School Committee. That position is for a 3-year term. Do I hear any nominations? Sir.
Hello, my name is Mark Healy, Meeting House Hill Road, and I would like to nominate Colleen Burt for the Regional School Committee.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Nomination has been seconded. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So I've worked with Colleen a little bit as I was on the school committee, and she entered just 3 years ago to represent Chickering School in the Dover School Committee. And she's been fire tested during that time due to COVID and the factors we had with hybrid schedules and bringing kids back in and supporting mental health needs. She, in fact, chaired the successful round of the Superintendent Search Committee, leading to our current superintendent, Ms. McCoy. And she has also, in a deep commitment to sustainability, been on the subcommittee for our Chickering Dover School Committee for the Sustainability Task Force. And I know personally that Colleen cares very much about supporting every, I would say child, that's our important work, but really every person in our community as we make decisions for our schools. She has served on the DSA subcommittee and the Norfolk County Sheriff's Mental Health and Substance Use Task Force. And when you talk with Colleen, you can tell it's not just serving on these groups, she just deeply believes in the work, and she's committed to actually kind of being a careful partner, a good listener, and an active voice for the needs of others. I'd like to just end that she also has a current 4th grader and 6th grader in the district, and she volunteer coaches on her daughter's soccer team, which is no small feat.
Thank you. Ms. Burr?
Thank you. One of the best things about being on this Dover School Committee has been working with great people like Marge, so thank you so much for your support. We've been through a lot in the last 3 years, both as a town and as a school district. I'm very proud of the work that we did on the school committees to keep the doors of our schools largely open. There are still lots of challenges ahead related to the pandemic and otherwise. However, I am more confident than ever that we have strong district leadership. I'm proud to have been a part of that process, and I do believe that we have the leaders we need going forward for this time. And I also do believe that this is a community that's deeply committed to education. I'm more gratified than ever that we chose Dover to raise our children and to educate them here. I am well positioned, I believe, to work with our regional school committee with my background in mental health. As Mark said, I'm passionate about mental health for students. I think that it's more important than ever that we're considering our children and the impacts that our decisions have on them and their mental health and wellness. We all affect each other, and the policies that are crafted and school committees and along with the leadership, they affect all of us. So my therapy background has positioned me well to listen, so please reach out if you have concerns. And as I finish out my term on Dover School Committee, my Dover School Committee email address is the best way to reach me, but I pride myself on being a good listener and from all different perspectives. I think that's essential right now, and I appreciate the trust you placed in me, and I hope I've earned your vote for a second time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for Dover-Sherburne Regional School Committee? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we move to library trustee. There are 2 positions that are open, and each is for a term of 3 years. Do I have any nominations for library trustee?
Good evening, Erin Rodette-Stavlos, 6 Grant Lane, current library trustee and serving as chair. And I'm here this evening to nominate my colleague Peter Hoffman for re-election.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Nomination has been seconded. You may proceed.
I'm going to allow Peter to fill you in on his more basic biographical details, and I'm just going to speak on how Peter has been as a colleague in the last few years. As Colleen and others have said, it's been interesting being the governor in town in the last few years. We went through COVID, we hired a new library director, and Peter's helped the new library director, who by the way is here this evening if you'd like to meet her, start to really get the machine going to review all of our policies. So it's helpful to have a practicing attorney on the trustees. And I'd also like to just say that Peter is so dedicated to working as colleagues, regardless of your perspective, regardless of which committees you're on, regardless of what you're bringing to the table. He has a way of staying focused on the mission of the library, on practical solutions for town, and respect for all citizens in town. So with that, it's my honor to nominate him.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman?
Thank you very much, Erin. That was very nice of you, and I am very pleased to accept your nomination. As she explained, I was thinking, we were chatting earlier about 3 years ago when I first was nominated for the trustee position, and it was just a matter of days before everything was shut down. And so it's been 3 years. It's been a difficult and interesting 3 years everywhere in town, and I really want to reiterate the hard work and dedication of so many different residents in town. It's helped us get through that difficult period, and now we've got we had the pandemic, and then we found a new director, a really great director, as Erin mentioned. She's here tonight if you haven't met her yet, Bethany Clem. So very excited about working continuing to work with the library over the next 3 years. So thank you very much. I appreciate your vote in May.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Are there any other nominations for library trustee? Go ahead. Well, okay, go ahead, Mr. Hoffman. I'm glad that everybody is being so kind to each other. Very good.
Hi, I'm Peter Hoffman, 16 Circle Drive. And I am here tonight to nominate for re-election a fellow member of the board, Judy Schultz, who many of you know. And
okay, Peter, hold it, Peter. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Peter.
So I've only been in town for 14 years, so I'm sure I don't know her as well as most of you. But she has been a great collaborator at the library, wealth of knowledge. She helped spearhead the search for our new director, which I feel was an excellent process that involved many different members of the community, and I am looking forward to working with her more in the future. And you know, it's really incredible. I found out some more about her that I didn't know. She helped found the Dover Mothers Association. She was a PTO board member at Chickering, the middle school and the high school, Guidance Advisory Council. It goes on and on and on. And she was a member of the Friends of the Dover Library for 6 years, and then since then she's had, I guess, 4 terms on the Board of Trustees, and looking for her 5th. So please second my, I guess it's
Sorry,
so
thank you.
I'll just set this aside.
Okay, Ms. Schultz, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Peter. As Peter said, I had the privilege of heading up the library director search committee along with fellow trustee Tracy Tobin and a wonderful group of community stakeholders. In the end, the trustees hired Bethany Clem, and we think she is exceptional. She brings a new energy and a new toolkit to the library, and I'm really excited to see what Bethany has in store for us going forward. So I humbly ask for your vote on May 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz. Do we have any other nominations for library trustees? Sir.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sean Gore from 116 Walpole Street, and it's my great honor to nominate Neha Gore for library trustee.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nomination has been seconded. You may proceed, sir.
Neha is no stranger to books or institutions of higher learning. She is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania with 3 degrees actually in philosophy, finance, and biotechnology. I'm her husband, I should know that. And for her, really, this position is about having the right skills, the right passion, the right vision for the library here in Dover. And for her, it's really all about books. Her career took her to Morgan Stanley and McKinsey before she left that terrible state of New York and came back to her roots here in Massachusetts, where she worked at Boston Medical Center, leading teams through the pandemic, and now is a vice president at Dana-Farber, where she's also leading massive teams on the front lines in our healthcare system. But what she brings to the library trustee position is a set of tools and a vision for how the library should actually operate. She's a big fan of our public library, of many public libraries. She's been taking our 5-year-old son, Yuvraj, to the library every week since he was 2 months old. And she was there in the first hour after it reopened, after the COVID restrictions lifted. She's a firm believer in the role of the library in children's upbringing, and she has been actually to every Minuteman library in a 25-mile radius, so she knows what's out there and what we need to do. And finally, I just want to close by saying, with Neha, it's really all about books. She wants the library to be accessible to all families, especially families where both parents are working, as is the case with us. And she really wants the library to be more of a hub for this community. Make it more about books, less about technology, and more about clubs and activities and inclusive activities for everyone here in Dover. So I hope you join me in supporting Mayhap for library trustee in a few months. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, would you like to say a few words?
I think that was a very hard act to follow, but I would be so honored to have your vote. At the heart of it, I just really believe in the magic of books and the role of the library in the community. And I love going every weekend with my 2 children, and would be so honored to serve on the chair or on the board, and have your vote hopefully in May. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for library trustee? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we move to Cemetery Commission. There is 1 position open, and it is for a 3-year term. Any nominations? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Stuart Swinney of 149 Dedham Street, and I wish to nominate Jeff Sauter to the position of Cemetery Commission.
Do I hear a second? Second. Nomination has been seconded. You may proceed, Mr. Swinney.
As a member of the Dover Historical Society, I have a deep interest in the history of this town, and that includes, of course, the cemetery, where in fact members of my family rest. And this interest, I noticed, was shared by Jeff Sauter, who is also a member of the Historical Society. And he has shown, not unsurprisingly, an involvement in the town, although he lived away for some 20 years. But since he came back, he's been researching genealogy, which is not surprising, since his family is connected with this town for over 2 centuries. And indeed, the first person to be buried in Highland Cemetery was a Botelho, to whom he is related. Now, Jeff has a considerable amount of energy, in fact, an enviable amount of energy and intellectual curiosity. And as such, I think he would be a valuable addition to the Historical Commission, because not only is he interested in the appearance of our fine cemetery, part of which has a historical connection, which I believe he'll be talking about, but also he's very interested intellectually in the people who are actually buried there. Now, I do know a little bit about the cemetery because my wife, Lena Swinney, was a member of the commission for a number of years, and by osmosis, whether I wanted it or not, I learned a great deal about that place. And I'm absolutely certain that Jeff would be really good in this position. So I would like to propose him with a great deal of energy.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sato, would you like to say a few words? I can't count that far.
If I were Calvin Coolidge, I would just say I accept the nomination and sit down. But I do have something to share with you. As Stuart mentioned, I'm really all about the cemetery. I've spent since retirement several years researching the people, the names, what they did, how they did it, and I never fail to come up with something new. And I have something that probably no one in this room knows that I just found out a couple of months ago. In 1973, about 50 years ago, a group of people in town got together and they did a survey of the older part of Highland Cemetery. They had the names, the dates, the epitaphs, if they could read. And I have a copy of it here with me, if anyone wants to see it afterwards. But what happened was they submitted it to the Massachusetts Historical Commission, who came back and said, we are designating that site as a historical site. So, to me, and it's kind of odd to be so excited about a cemetery, especially since I'm standing here. But to me, the responsibility of the cemetery commissioner now is not just a commissioner, but someone who's really a curator of a historic area. And that's why I would like to serve the people. And I will just end by throwing out another piece of historic data, which most of you have probably not known. But back in 1762, there were no roads in this town. It was all just paths, horse paths, pedestrian paths, so forth. And they hired a man named Hezekiah Allen, who lived on Farm Street, to build the very first road in the town of Dover. And guess where they told him that road had to go? It had to go from the burial ground, past the meeting house, which is where the Episcopal Church is, to the front door of John Cheney's house. And the front door of John Cheney's house is now one big lane as long as it stands. And so the very first street, which we know is Springdale, next time you drive, you can bring this to mind, started at Highland Cemetery. And that's the kind of stuff I keep coming up with, and it never ends. It's a big black hole, and I would just love to serve on the cemetery.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other nominations for Cemetery Commission? Sir.
Hi, my name is Dick Fishman. I live at 29 Grand Hill Drive. And I'd like to nominate Fred Sears to be Cemetery Commissioner.
Do I hear a second? Nomination has been seconded. You may proceed, sir. Thank you.
I've known Fred for 43 years. And Fred and I have coached soccer together for 40, which is kind of scary. But we're still doing it. Fred is also the cross-country ski coach, or has been for over 30 years. And more importantly, Fred volunteers cleaning headstones in the cemetery 3 to 4 days a week when the weather is good, and often when the weather is not so good. He'll also do it if somebody needs a stone cleared. Fred takes that kind of care in the cemetery. He took me on a tour last year and showed me around, and I learned a lot about who was there. Thankfully, I'm not there, but I own a piece of property there. I do hope you'll choose Fred.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sears?
Thank you, Dick. Well, Jeff is a tough act to follow. I really enjoyed it. I like the history. I think we should create another position. You could have the historical commissioner, and we would both find a place to do this because, there you go. Because I'm going to sort of bounce around, but I'll try to be in 5 minutes. But I'm more of a hands-on person. And when my wife and I walk around the cemetery, which we've done probably for the last 10 years, I noticed my friends over there. And I like to see their stones smiling back at me. Sometimes that takes a little work, like scrubbing them. So you do the research and find out that the product works, called D2 if you're ever interested. And when you get that granite just clean, the stone just smiles back to you. And those are the kind of things that move me. As far as Dover, well, my parents came to Dover, I think, right after World War II, because they said they couldn't afford any other house. Well, where I lived was down a dirt road. We had to get a right of way because in the Burnham Road was a nice artesian well, and the people there said, no way in blank are they going to drive over that road and wreck our well. So if we wanted to buy that house in the woods, we had to put in the road, which we did. And it turned out to be a heck of a nice neighborhood because I was right next to the cemetery. And so therefore, you know, I must have had a few experiences over there. Living. As a kid, we used to sneak in when there was a lovely snowstorm, beautiful coasting down that hill next to the cemetery structure. Don't hit a stone, or don't tell your parents you were there, but that was the best little slalom we ever had. As a freshman in high school, they always look for someone to volunteer. Well, actually, I got paid for this one, but I pushed the lawnmower around that place. Pushed one now. You know when they do it now, one person can use a machine and do almost in half a day what it took me oh, I don't know, 3 days? Maybe. And it wasn't fun pushing that baby around and then having to bend over and do things to fix it. But anyway, that's where the cemetery goes. But in Dover, when you grow up, you got chances to volunteer. So as a 15, 16-year-old, wow, I could get on the auxiliary fire department. So that's what I've done. I've also been an EMT for about 4 years because I was a little frustrated over not knowing enough about basic CPR, etc.
Excuse me, Fred, 15 seconds, sir.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I can go on like the guy talking about history. So coming right to the point. If you want someone put hands on and knows half the people and half the cemetery because I grew up with them, I'm the guy.
Thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? I can't believe we're laughing about the cemetery. I have 5 relatives buried there, and they're probably spinning in their graves laughing now, too. Are there any other nominations for Cemetery Commission? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we move to the Planning Board. We have one position that's open, and it's for a term of 5 years. Yes, Carol.
Thank you. Carol Lisbon, 2 Cross Street, and currently the chair of the planning board. It's an honor to nominate Jody Hsu for her second 5-year term on the board.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Second. Nomination has been seconded. You may proceed. Thank you.
Jody is a valuable and highly respected member of the board. She has developed a comprehensive understanding of the zoning bylaws, which I can tell you is quite an undertaking and not necessarily a lot of fun. But she also brings to every application before us thoughtfulness and common sense. She also took on a leadership role about 2 years ago and agreed to help translate one of our major initiatives into a bylaw, which you will hear about when she presents at the open hearing here in the Great Hall next Monday, and then at the town meeting on May 1st. She approached that with tremendous dedication, has spent untold hours on individual research, so she fully understood the situation and the issue, and then worked tremendously with our town planner, town staff, and the various boards and committees whose statutory responsibilities were referred to in the bylaw. She did this in a totally collaborative way, and I know that it's been very, very much appreciated, not only by the town employees that she worked with, but with our fellow citizen volunteers in the boards and committees that she worked with. So I hope you will join her colleagues, the other 5 members of the planning board, in supporting her nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hsu?
Thank you, Carol. I'm Jody Hsu. I live at 10 Main Street, and I've lived in Dover since 2005. I have 3 children who made their way through the Dover-Sherburne schools, and I've volunteered in a lot of different things over the years, as you can probably imagine. Sometimes I tell Carol that the planning board feels a little bit like the Hotel California, because once you're in, you can never leave. Because 5 years does feel like an awfully long time, but what's really true about the planning board is that it is fairly complex. So I feel that the experience I've built up since my election in 2018 to the planning board, and actually before that I was elected as an associate member of the planning board, which is a short-term sort of introductory board member role. So I've really been involved with the planning board for 7 years as opposed to just the 5, but I built up a lot of knowledge about the bylaw and how the town works, and I think it will serve the board well, and I think it serves the residents of Dover well to have that knowledge base. So I appreciate the nomination, and I hope you'll vote for me for planning board.
Thank you, Ms. Hsu. Are there any other nominations for planning board? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we move to the Board of Health. There is one position open, and it is for a 3-year term. Any nominations for the Board of Health? Yes, ma'am.
I feel like I'm nominating 2 people. Aaron Renatabla, 6 Bryant Lane. I'm here to nominate Dr. Kate Peterson for re-election to the Board of Health.
Do I hear a second? Nomination has been seconded.
Second. Okay. So for those who don't know, Dr. Peterson is a retired primary care physician who practiced at Beth Israel Deaconess. Town first appointed Kay to the Board of Health back in March of 2020 and elected her to the Board of Health in May of 2020. And nothing at all was going on in 2020 for the Board of Health. She has worked tirelessly on behalf of the health of our town, setting up new processes that I know I've benefited from, the vaccine clinics, etc. She has worked to strengthen the functioning of the committee by shifting it from different collections of outside consultants to full-time employees within the town for better coordination and better service to the town. And it was the unanimous honor of the Board of Trustees from the library to honor Kay's work with an outstanding service to the library board in 2021, specifically because of the collaboration that she gave to the director, as well as throughout town, as we all tried to grapple with what that heck was going on. I really enjoy working with Kay. As we've said to so many of the citizens tonight, she's collaborative, she's practical, and she's really here for the benefit of all of us. So it's my honor to nominate her, Dr. Kay Peterson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Aaron. It's astonishing to be here 3 years later at this microphone when I accepted the nomination and was terrified, as we all were, about what was coming next. What I should have also been terrified about was how much work it would be to join the Board of Health 3 years ago. But it also spared me having to be concerned about what I would do in retirement. I retired 6 months earlier, so it was in that respect a good move. But in all seriousness, it was, I had never done anything in town as a volunteer. I'd attended meetings, I'd found them interesting, but I became kind of somewhat of a junkie about town government and really interested in it. The Board of Health was right up my alley. And what's been great now that the pandemic has subsided somewhat or significantly is that there are so many other issues that the Board of Health faces in town, and we have the opportunity to move forward with that. There's a lot of support from the Department of Public Health or local public health in Dover, and I'm really eager to move ahead with that now that I've been here long enough to learn, and the pandemic has subsided enough that there's time to do that. So I hope you'll support me in my run for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Are there any other nominations for the Board of Health? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. And let me just say, the Board of Health was such a resource for all of us dealing with COVID. The town meetings that we had out on the football field were organized by the Board of Health and Felicia Hoffman and others in the town, and they did an outstanding job. And we're very pleased to report that as far as we were able to determine, nobody contracted COVID from any of those meetings. So I really just want to say. Okay, our final position tonight is Parks and Recreation. We have one position open, and it is a 3-year term. Sir.
Hi, Chris Baldwin, Chairman of the Park and Rec Commission. I live on Tower Drive, and I'd like to nominate Kathy Weld.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Nomination has been seconded. You may proceed, Chris.
Thank you. So when I joined Park and Rec over a dozen years ago as a commissioner, the focus was youth sports. And with the help of a lot of members of the community, we've been able to transition to more of a focus on recreation and soon-to-be community. And what's really amazing about that, Mark Galoni, who's our director, told me last week, as of last week, we now have no direct responsibility for youth sports. We still manage the fields, and we will be involved in programming. But that's a huge shift that we've been able to do. And the reason I mention that is we're now about to make another shift, and we're going to take a lot of responsibility, we hope, pending the June special town meeting, for management of the community center. And we're going to have it in the community center. And I couldn't think of who would be a better person to help us make that transition than Kathy Weld. So I not only have like 30 seconds, it would take 2 hours to give the full Kathy resume, but Kathy first moved to town 55 years ago with her husband Wally, raised her 4 children, 4 sons here, and in the town government, Kathy was on the Dover School Committee for 2 terms, the Warrant Committee for 7 terms, the Board of Selectmen for 2 terms, Carroll Community Center Building Committee number 2, circa 2008. The Town Report Committee, 2008 to present, still working on the town reports. And the Carroll Management Advisory Committee, which is where I was the liaison for Park and Rec, and I worked directly with Kathy for about 12 years. So I'm hopeful that you all support Kathy in this nomination, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathy, Ms. Weld?
Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, sorry about that. Now I've got it in my hand. Oh dear. Actually, I'm very honored to have been invited to run for this position. It's going to be definitely a new chapter in my town life, which I hadn't really thought about, but actually it's a very good segue, a very good next chapter. Definitely for all the things that I've been working on for the last 20 years, I think. So I'm glad that Chris gave that little summary of the changes in the Parks and Rec department, because I won't be out there managing team sports, which might not have been my forte. Anyway, I'm looking forward to working with colleagues that I have worked with now for several years, and both Parks and Rec, but also Council on Aging and the staff and committee people that have been involved. And I know it will come as no surprise to most of you here that if elected, I would especially look forward to helping make our Carroll Community Center, when it gets completed, into a place that we can all be very proud of for its top-notch management, for its excellent, varied, and meaningful programming for all ages, and for the way that it helps bring our community together in all sorts of ways, including to enjoy shared interests and also try new pursuits. I think it could be a wonderful place for all ages, and that's what we would like, and I would certainly appreciate your support for this next chapter in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Ms. Weld. Are there any other nominations for Park and Recreation? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. And before I direct the caucus clerk to cast one ballot, let me just confirm with town clerk that we do not have more than 2 nominees for each position that is open. Okay, thank you, Felicia. I direct the caucus clerk to cast 1 ballot for the caucus, which reflects the names put forward tonight. I want to say thank you very much for standing for election. I wish you all the best of luck. A couple of reminders before we adjourn. Town meeting will be held on Monday, May 1st, and if necessary, Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 7 p.m. And town elections are Monday, May 15th, 2023 from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Registration for town meeting and town elections will be accepted by the registrars until Friday, April 21st from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I would like to ask all nominees to please sign the caucus certificate on my left and pick up campaign finance materials from the town clerk before leaving the hall tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn the caucus? So moved. Do I hear a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you and have a good night.